Hello and welcome to the Dashboard course by Trump Excel. I am Sumit Bansal, and in this video I will show you how to create a human resource training dashboard in Excel. If you have gone through all the other videos of this dashboard course, there I have given you all the nuts and bolts to create a dashboard. But this is the first video in this course where I would show you how to create a fully functional dashboard from scratch. So let me first show you what I mean by a human resource training dashboard. This is the HR training dashboard that we would learn to create in this video. Let me show you first how this dashboard works. So here I have some controls. I have this dashboard made for 2 years, 2013 and 14. Here you can select the levels. So these are band levels of employees. So you have middle management, junior management, senior management, leadership, or you want all those bands. And when you make these selections, you would see that this dashboard would update. Here you also have the functionality to select countries. So here you can select US, Canada, Europe, and Asia Pacific. Now, the idea of this dashboard came to me when I was speaking with one of my friends who is in human resource, and there they have a huge data set where they record the trainings that their employee take. And I have used their data, so I've used their structure, and the data is dummy data, to create this dashboard. So this dashboard has real life utility, and what you see here is a dashboard or summary of that data that I have in the backend. So I will take you through the data as well, but let me show you first how this dashboard works. So with these controls, whenever you make these selections, so in this case let me select 2014 and I would select all these levels, and I have all these countries or these regions selected. It gives me the training man days covered. So in total there have been 5,240 man days of training conducted by this company. The first chart on the top left here is the training type by department. So in this case you would have all these departments: corporate, sales, marketing, and all these, and there you would see that how many of the employees in these departments have taken a professional development training as compared to skill development training. And as I mentioned, if you change these options here, so in this case if I change the band to junior management, you would see that these numbers reflect for this particular band. On the top right here I have the training delivery type. So you would see how many people have taken an online training, how many have been trained by an external trainer, and how many by an internal trainer. At this bottom left I have training coverage by department. So this is a table where I have all these departments. I have the total number of people trained in this given year, in this band, in this region. So have a look here. When I change this region, this would automatically update. To show you how this dashboard works, I would keep all these regions selected. So here it gives you the department, the number of people trained in each department, what is the percentage of department that has been trained that year. So in this case, corporate, total 11.7% people got trained in 2014 in junior management. If I make it to all, it would be 16.5% people have been trained in corporate department in 2014. And then there is a comparison versus last year. So as compared to last year, we have trained more than the increment or the growth has been 2.1% as compared to say supply chain, where it has gone down by 12.4%. And here in bottom right I have top trainings. So I have these top 10 trainings with the number of employees that are covered in each training and the name of the trainer. In this case you can see the top training is Microsoft Excel. Advanced management skills is the next best training, and so on. I have these sorted. I also have this option to select whether I want a professional development training or a skill development training. So if I select professional development here, it would give me all the trainings in professional development with the employees covered and the trainer name. If I select skill development, it would give me only the skill development training. And if I select both, then it would give me all these trainings. Now let me show you how to create this dashboard from scratch. So I have a separate workbook where I have all the HR training data, and let's go through the data once so that we know exactly what all parameters we have. We have the employee ID, we have participant name, we have the job band. So here I have middle management, junior management, senior management, and leadership. I have these business units like corporate, marketing, supply chain, logistics, and all. I have four regions: US, Asia Pacific, Canada, and Europe. I have these training names here. The training type. Now there are two kinds of training. One is professional development training, which could be something like an advanced management skills or business writing, and one is a skill development training, which is like Six Sigma or Excel or business grammar. I also have the trainer type here, so it could either be an online training, it could be an external trainer or an internal trainer. I have trainer names here. I have the start date and the end date along with the number of days of training. I also have this data of external and internal trainer, so this is something that I can skip. Now, you might remember that in initial videos I talked about having three layers in a dashboard. One should be your data layer, another one should be your analysis layer or the calculation layer, and the third one is the dashboard layer where you have all these presentations. Now it's good to have at least these three layers. You can have more layers. You may have data that extends to more than one worksheet. You can have calculations in multiple worksheets, and again your dashboard may extend for more than one worksheet. Now with this calculation, we would create formulas, we would identify and summarize the data that can be used in the dashboard. In my case, I had a lot of time to create this dashboard, and then I have created this structured calculation worksheet. In your case, it may not be so structured. While you are creating a dashboard and you are improving it day by day, you may not have this structured data, but again, it is a good idea to structure it when you're done with the dashboard, because it makes it easier for you to refresh your data or to track any changes. So here we would make all the calculations, but before that, let me introduce the dashboard tab. And here I've added one more tab. The first thing I would do is I would go to view and I would remove the grid lines so that it gives me a lot of white space. And I would insert a bar here, as you saw in my initial dashboard, the dashboard that I showed you initially. And here I have this bar. I would change the color of this bar to somewhere a gray color, maybe a lighter version, and I can also change the line color here to a dark gray color. So now this is the bar that would hold the interactive controls. So I would first need to introduce those controls, those interactive controls, which are combo buttons and checkboxes. So to do that, I would go to the developer tab. If you do not have the developer tab here, you should right click on any of these ribbons, go to customize the ribbon, and here in Excel options you would have the developer option unchecked. Simply check this, press OK, and it would give you the developer tab here. Now in developer tab you go to insert, which is in the controls group, and within insert you would have combo box. I would click on it and you can see that now you see this plus sign on the worksheet, and I can control it with the mouse. I can click anywhere, and as soon as I do that, it inserts a control box, and it inserts the combo box, I'm so sorry. And now I can place it over this bar and I can resize it similarly as I do for any object. And the intent is that I would have the years here, which is 2013 and 2014. Now that data would appear here, but I have to give that input to this combo box. So I would go to the calculations tab, and here I would specify the year, which is 2013 and 2014. So these two would be the input for this combo box. I would right click on it, go to format control, and within format control, within this control tab, I would have three options. First is the input range. my input range here would be these two cells. There need to be a cell link. So my cell link here would be this cell here, or maybe this cell here, and I would specify that there are only two lines of data, so only show me these two lines. You can have the 3D shading if you want. I don't want it, so I would simply click OK. And as soon as I do that, you can see that here I have a combo box that shows 2013 and 2014. Now when I click on 2013 here, it would display 1 because I have selected the first option in the combo box. If I go back and select 2014, it would show 2 here. So now you can control this dashboard by changing this, because whenever you make this change, this value changes, and I would use this value in all of my formulas so that it becomes dynamic. Similarly, I want another combo box here which would show me the bands, which is junior management, senior management, middle management and all. So I would simply click on it, right click on it, copy it and paste it by pressing Ctrl V, and it copies the combo box. And here I would change the input cells. But to do that, I would first have to mention the bands here. Now what I have done here in this dashboard is I keep all the interactive controls together here in this shaded area, blue color area. And the reason is that it is really easy now to modify these controls or to keep tab of what is happening in the formula. So for example, here as you would see, I would create a huge formula and I would refer to these interactive controls. So it's easier to do that when you have everything together. So I, as a principal, have all these controls and their input cells together at the top of my dashboard, at the top of my calculation worksheet, so that it's easier for me to keep track of it. Now here I need to have the bands shown, so I would go to the data tab and I would copy all the bands here. So let me copy all these bands, and what I would do is I would go to some free area in the worksheet. It could be this sheet or any sheet, but the idea is I would simply paste it here. And now to have the unique values, I would simply go to data, and here I would go to remove duplicates. And when I click on remove duplicates, it opens the remove duplicates dialog box. Here, if your data does not have headers, which my data does not have, I would keep this unchecked, and here it says column O. As soon as I click on OK, it would remove all the duplicates and it would leave me with unique values. The keyboard shortcut for doing this is Alt AM, and I would use this frequently, so I would keep on using the keyboard shortcut, which is Alt AM. And now when I click OK, it says 9,996 duplicate values found and removed. 4 unique values remain, and these 4 values are these job bands. Now let me restructure it a bit. So I would get junior management at the top. So I have junior management, middle management, senior management, and leadership, which is a hierarchy. I would also add all employees at the top. And the reason is that you may want the functionality to select the training data for all the employees. So here in this case, I would have this additional option. Now I would copy this and I would paste here as values. So I would press Alt E S V and I would just press OK. So now I have all these options here. Now this would be my input value for this combo box. So here I would right click, go to format control, and I would change the input range to this. I would change the cell link to this cell, and I would make drop down lines as 5 lines because there would be 5 lines of data. And you can see here it gives me these values. Now an interesting thing you might have noticed here is that in this case I had junior management, which is JM, MM, SM, and I copied that value, but here it shows me junior management, middle management, senior management. But if you look at this cell, or maybe if I just press F2, you can see the cell holds the value JM, but it shows me junior management. The reason is that if I press Ctrl 1, here I have applied a formatting, which is this. So what happened is, let me show you how I did it. So I would copy this and apply the same format for all the cells. And what happened is, this is what I copied, but I pressed Control 1, and within custom number formatting I changed the format. You would know if you have watched my custom number formatting video that there are 4 formats: positive, negative, 0 and text. In this case, when I only type general, it takes general for all the formats, but I can specify it individually. So what I would do is, I would specify the format. For positive numbers it's general, for negative number it's general, for 0 it's general, but when it comes to text I would type junior junior management, and these are in double quotes. And you can see that now the sample shows junior management. And now when I click OK, it doesn't matter what's there in the cell, it would always show junior management. Similarly, I can change the format for middle management as well. So I would quickly do this, and I would type middle management. I hope the spelling is right. Yes, it is. And similarly for senior management, I would go to custom, general, control V, and here I would type senior management. And now I press OK. So now here the cell has JM, but it displays junior management, and same is the case for these 2 cells. Now when you go to the dashboard, you would see that the drop down would have these values, and let me extend it so that it shows everything. Here it does not pick up the value, the exact value in the cell, rather it picks up the value which is displayed in the cell. So here it shows junior management, and that is what is picked up by the combo box. So now I have this applied as well. The third thing is countries. So again I would go back to the data, I would go to the region, this column here, region column, go to the right, and again in some area, maybe here, I would press Control V, then I would use the keyboard shortcut Alt AM to remove these duplicates. And now when I click OK, one thing is, it says my data has headers, which is not the case, so I would uncheck this, and now I would press OK, and it gives me these 4 countries. I would copy these countries, come to calculations tab, and here I would paste these as values. Now I would go back to the dashboard, and here I need to insert 4 checkboxes for those countries. So I would again go to developer tab, insert, and here I would insert this checkbox, and I click here, it inserts this checkbox for me. I would simply copy and paste it by pressing Control C and Control V. So I press Control C and Control V thrice to have these 4 checkbox. I would simply select all these and align them together, and then I can just space it out so that my dashboard looks neat. And this is what I have. Let me fill these. So my first option would be US, then the second option is Asia Pacific, so I would do it, or maybe I would group it logically, so I would make it Canada. This one would be, say, Europe, and this one would be Asia Pacific. And again I would change the order here as well, so I would bring Canada here and I would bring Europe here. Now the way checkbox work are, let me space it out a little better. Now the way these work are that when I click this and it gets checked, I would have to link a cell to it. Again I would right click and go to format control, and here I would say I want it checked whenever someone opens this dashboard. So I keep it checked, and my cell link here is this cell. Similarly I would do it for all these, but see what happens for the US. Here when I uncheck it and I go to calculations, it says false, but when I go back and I check this, it says true. So this value would change to false if the country is unchecked, and it would become true if it is checked. And same is the case with all these other countries. So let me quickly do it for the remaining countries. So this is for Canada, this is for Europe, so this one, and this one is for Asia Pacific here. And now you see here, when I uncheck Canada and Europe, these two become false and these two are true. Let me check it again. So these are the three interactive controls that I have configured as of now. There is another fourth one, which is training type, that you might remember from the bottom right part, which is professional development, skill development, and both. I would configure it later, but I don't want it as of now because this only changes the bottom right chart, which is this chart, and not all these charts. So now let me get back to my calculation worksheet, and here I first need to create the top left chart, which is this one. So I need to have the number of professional development training and skill development training for each of the department, for the specified year, for the specified band, and for the specified regions. So now to do that, I would first have to create a formula. And in this dashboard and in all the dashboards that I create, I use sum product formula extensively. And the reason is that sum product formula gives you a lot of flexibility to add a lot of conditions. So I can specify I want year as this, band as this, country as this, and business unit as this, and training type as this, and it could all be configured in that sum product formula. So let's get started by creating the first formula. And just bear with me if you think it's getting too complicated. Just rewind this video and watch it again. But this would be a huge formula, and then it'll be easier for us to construct the remaining formulas, because we can just copy paste this formula. But this one would be a bigger formula. So in this case, the first thing that I want is I want all the number of people trained in 2014, which is the selected year. So in this case, I would say the year in this data set. Now before even I go to configuring the data, there is something I should do, which is converting this data into an Excel table. And the reason I'm doing it, because it will make it very simple to create huge formulas, and it also makes your Excel table dynamic. So if you add more data to it, then your dashboard would automatically update based on the new data. So to create an Excel table, I would select any of these cells and I would press Ctrl T. And as soon as I press Ctrl T, it would open the create table dialog box. Here it would ask you what is the range of data that you want to convert it into a table. It has automatically guessed that I want A1 to M10001 as the data, which is right in this case, but it's a good idea to always cross check whether this is the right range or not. My table has headers, so I would keep this option checked. Now when I click OK, you can see that this data has been converted into a table. So I have these banded rows and I have these filters applied. Another thing that I would do is I would go to the table tools design tab, and here I would name this table. So I would name this as HR data, and with this table name, and I would simply click enter, and with this table name I can create formulas and I can refer back to this data, these columns, with this table name. So let's start by creating a formula. I would create some product, and the first thing is that I need the year to be 2014, which is what I've selected in the dashboard. I would use the year formula, and here I would say HR data. So as soon as, see what happens, as soon as I type H, it would show me all the formulas along with the name of the table. As soon as I type R, it would show me HR data, because there is only one table which name has HR data. It starts with HR, and there are no formulas that starts with this. So I would simply press tab, and now I would press square bracket. I would start with the square bracket, and as soon as I do that, it would give me the names of all the columns. So it starts with employee ID, participant name, job band, and so on and so forth. So here I can select the column that I want, and in this case the column I want is start date, because I want the start date to be 2014. So I select the start date, and I would say that this should be equal to 2014. Now another thing is that I would want these values to come in a single line, because I don't want to select this entire range and then see what option was selected and then that value should be returned. So I would, let me select this cell here, close this, enter, and let me use a simple formula here. And what I'm doing here is I would select this array, I would press F4, and I would say return this row number value. And when I do this and I press enter, it gives me 2014, which means that if I select 2013 here, it would return 2013. If I select 2014 here, it would return 2014. Let me do this for this this interactive control data as well, which is the band data. I would select all these bands, press F4 to lock it, and then this would be my row number. And now when I press enter, it gives me JM, which is junior management. Now what I've done is here I've created a condition that the year should be equal to 2014. Now when I press Ctrl Shift Enter, it gives me 0, but I would start creating this formula. So I would add another condition to it, and I would say sum product this condition, and it would return an array of trues and falses, because it would go through all the data, which is 10,000 rows in the start date column, and it would check whether the year is 2014 or not. If it is 2014, it would return true. If it is not, then it would return false. And another condition here would be what is the band level. So in band level, I would first use an if condition, and I would say if this value, and let me press F4, if this value is equal to all employees, then return true, else check the condition, which is HR data in job band is equal to this, and I would press F4. Now let me close the bracket and let me press Ctrl Shift Enter, and it gives me 2103. But before I take you through the result, let's understand this formula again. My first condition here is that the year of the start date should be equal to 2014, and my second condition here is that this value should either be all employees or it should be equal to the specified band, which is either junior management, middle management, senior management, or leadership. So it would first check this. If this is all employees, it would return true. But if it is not all employees, then it would check the job band in all those 10,000 rows in the job band column, and it would check here. And if it is junior management, then it would return true. But if it is not junior management, it would return false. And what happens here is that if I change this here to all employees, you can see that the value changes to 2882, because now it first checks here, identifies all the value for 2014, all the values that has year as 2014, and then here it would simply return true. If you select this entire thing and if you press F4, so let me select it from here, and let me press F9, you can see that this returns true because this is all employees and this condition is met. Now let me press Ctrl Shift Enter again, and if I go back to the data to show you how it's working, we would first go to the start date, and here I would select 2014, and now you can see that it says 2882. If I go back and I select junior management here as the band and I click OK, it gives me 2103. Let's cross check again, and here I would select junior management and the data here, let me press Ctrl Shift Enter, it gives me 2103. So you can see that this has become dynamic. As soon as I make these changes, it would change. Now let's add more conditions to this formula. So as of now, I have the condition for the years and bands, but I need more conditions. Start with, I need to configure these countries into this formula. So I would enter a multiplication sign, and here I would use the match formula. Now match formula takes three arguments: the lookup value, it looks up this value in the given lookup array, and then it returns the position. In this case, I would take the lookup value as the region in this table, in this Excel table. So it has all the regions, all 10,000 values of the region column, and this becomes my lookup value. So instead of giving one value, I have given this 10,000 values, and I am looking these 10,000 values in this array. So what would happen is it would give me an array of 10,000 values, where this array would vary between 1 to 4 based on the data in this column. So for example, if the data starts with US and Canada, Europe and Asia Pacific, and that becomes my lookup value, and my lookup array is again this, then it would return 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I would press F4 here to lock this, and I would say give me an exact match. So I enter 0 here. This becomes my match formula, and what it would return is it would return 1, 2, 3 or 4. I would use this formula within choose formula. And what choose formula does is it takes an index number, and then based on the index number it picks up the value. So if my index number is 1, it would return this value 1. If my index number is 2, it would return value 2. In this case, my match formula would return an array of 10,000 values that would range between 1 to 4. So my choose function takes the index number, which is an array of 10,000 values ranging between 1 to 4, and it would return these values, which is trues and falses. So it would be D2, and I would press F4 to lock it, and D3, again F4 to lock it, D4, again F4 to lock it, and D5, and again F4 to lock it. And now I would close this, and I would close this here. And now when I press Control Enter, it gives me 2103. But what happens when I deselect US? This value updates to 1575, because now all the values in the US are not counted. Now again, let me take you through the entire formula. The year here checks whether the year is 2014 or not. It returns a value of trues and falses. Then here it checks whether the band is either all employees or the specified band, and again returns an array of trues and falses. And here choose formula again return an array of trues and falses based on which country is selected. Now I would have to add another condition to it, because I still have two conditions left. One is the business unit and one is the training type, and these would be simple one. I would simply multiply again, open the bracket, and I would say HR data, and here the business unit should be equal to this cell, and I would lock A here but not 11, because I have to go down. When I drag this down, I would want this to appear for all the business units. And the last condition here is HR data, and here I would check for training type, and I would say this is equal to this training type, and I would press F4 to lock this. And I am all set. My first formula and the most difficult formula for this dashboard is done. I would press Control Shift Enter, and it gives me 102. If I go back to my dashboard and select US, it gives me 129. So these are the values. Let's cross check it with our data in the data table. My country is 2014 and my band is junior management. So let's go back here. I've selected junior management already. My data is already 2014, and now what I need to do is select the business unit as corporate and training as professional type. So here I would select business unit and I would make it corporate, and I would select the training type as professional development, and you can see that it returns 129 records. Let me remove the filters by pressing Ctrl Shift L, and 129 is the value it returned, and this is the value which I get here, which means that my formula is working fine, and I can simply double click on this formula to get the values for all these business units in professional development. Similarly, if I need to create a formula for skill development, I can simply select this, go here and enter this formula, and the only change I would want to make is change professional development to skill development. And now when I press Ctrl Shift Enter, it gives me the values for all these conditions for skill development. And now when I double click here, it gives me these values. Now all I need to do here is create a graph. So I would go to insert, I would go to stacked bar chart, stacked column chart, and in this case I would go back to calculations, select all these cells, come here and press Ctrl V, and it gives me these values. I can change the colors and everything, so I can change the color to light blue here, and I can give it a border, so maybe a gray border would look fine. Again, a gray border here would look good, and my chart is all set. I can change the chart title. I prefer to put the title separately, but you can also have the chart title here, and your data is almost ready. If you add data labels, you would have it ready. So my first chart is ready. I would do the beautification later, where I would fit everything here, but let me jump on to the other things, which is the top right chart. Now you would notice that I have these images here. I've got these images from Microsoft PowerPoint clip art, so you can use these images. If you want to have some other images, you want to get more creative, then you can try something else. But the idea is that these images are static images there, and the numbers over these images would change based on this table. Here I need to calculate these three values, which is training delivery type. This could be an online training, an external trainer, or an internal trainer. Now I have already created a huge formula here, so I would leverage this formula. I would press F2, get into the edit mode, and copy this entire formula, and here I would paste it. Now I would modify it based on what my conditions are. So I still need the year here, I would keep it. I need the employee band, so I would keep the second condition. I need the countries, the regions, so I would keep the third condition as well. But I don't need to check for corporate and professional development. Instead, I need to check for the training delivery type, which is online, external, or internal. So I would remove these two conditions and create a new one, and I would say HR data. I would hit tab, and then I would start with a square bracket. Here I would select trainer type, because in trainer type I have online, external, or internal. And here I would simply select online, and I would hit F4 thrice, so that my column is locked but my row is not. And I would close this bracket and press Ctrl Shift Enter, and it gives me 682 for online training. Now let's again go back and cross check with the data. I have all these countries selected, and I have junior management in 2014. So here I press Ctrl Shift L, and I select job band as junior management. My year here is 2014, so I select this, and in trainer type I select online, and here it gives me 682, which means that my formula is working just fine. All I need to do is drag this down, and it gives me the right result. Another way of cross-checking is, which I often use, is I select all these and I see that the sum here is 2103, and I also select all these and I see that the sum is 2103. So this is data cross-checking, where I know that this should be equal to this, because these are just different categorization of the same data points. Now when I have the number of people trained by online trainings, by external trainers and internal trainers, I can plot these numbers on the dashboard. So I would go here to these images, I would select all these images, copy it, and then in the dashboard I would paste these images. Now one thing that you may want to do when you're using charts and pictures is that you don't want these pictures to move when you're moving the columns and rows. So for example, here if I change the column width for G, you can see that these images have shifted to the right, which is something I do not want. So what I'll do is I would select these images, I would right click and go to format object, and here in properties I would select do not move or size with cells. And now when I apply this option, you can see that nothing would happen even if I change the width. And this is something that you want to do for all the objects be it format controls or be it charts in your dashboard. So here you can see that I've already done it for the chart. The same thing has been done for the format controls as well. So you can see that it is applied for every format control, every object which sits over the worksheet. Now when you change these width or row heights, nothing would affect your pictures, your images, or your format controls. Now when I have these images here, and this globe, blue color globe, represents online training, these are external trainers, and this image represents internal trainers, I would have the numbers at the top. So to do that, I would go to insert, and within insert I would go to text box, and I would insert a text box here. I would go to the formula bar. While this text box is selected, I would go to the formula bar, press equal to, and link it to the cell here which is online, and now I would press enter. And as soon as I do this, you can see that the number here reflects the online training in 2013 for junior management. If I change this to all employees, you can see that the number has been updated, and it now reflects the new number. So I would create another one for the other two types of training. So I would press Ctrl D to duplicate it, again Ctrl D to duplicate it, and now I would simply change this to 21 and this one to 22. So I have these three in place. I would align them, and now I can change the formatting. So I would change the position to center and middle. I would change font type to bold. I can change the font color and font size to 16. So now you can see that this looks a bit better here. If you have numbers which are higher than 1000, so in this case if I select 2013, 2014, and this is not changing, that's because here I have a static value. I think somewhere while creating the dashboard I typed over this value, so I would again link it back to the dashboard. So I would simply do this, and now you can see that these numbers would get updated when I change the year. And in this case you can see that it is 1043 because I have changed the formatting here to display a 1000 separator. If you do not have a 1000 separator, it would not show up here in this format. So now it looks a bit better. I can align them properly and then position them and put it inside a box with a border so that it looks better. But again, this beautification is something I would do at the end of creating this dashboard. Now here I need a table where I would show some parameters. Let me show you the original dashboard. Here we had department, number of people trained, percentage of department trained, and the trend versus last year, and this is training coverage by department. So let me copy this and paste it here. Also, just to reiterate, I got a lot of time to create this dashboard from the data, so it looks very neat and clean while I'm creating this dashboard, but it is not often the case. You may have a lot of iterations and you may try a lot of different combinations while you're creating the dashboard. So that's a natural process of creating one. But when you have created the dashboard, then again if you create it, it becomes a lot more structured, which is the case with me while I'm recording this video. So don't think that dashboard would always be so clean. Initially it may be a bit clumsy and you may change the data again and again to see what fits best for your dashboard. Now here in the department, I would copy these departments with these business units and put it here, and now I need to make these calculations. So I would do it here in the calculations tab. The first thing I want to get here is the number of employees. So as of now it is 2013, so I want to have the number of employees in 2013, and when I change the year I want the number of employees to update. So to do that I would use an index formula, and here in data I already have the number of employees in these years. So I would select this data as the array in index and I would press F4 to lock it. Now as row number, I want the first row number when I'm in the corporate one, but when I go down I want this to get incremented by 1. So I would use the rows formula, and I can select any cell anywhere and I would simply press colon, so it gives me data T1 is to T1, and now I would lock the first T1 here. And what happens here is that this value here, if I select this value here and I press F9, it gives me 1, but when I drag it down it becomes data T1 is to T2, which means that now there are two rows between T1 and T2, so this would become 2, and as I go down it would become 3 and 4 and so on. So this would become my row number, and my column number, so for my column number I would use match formula, and the lookup value here would be the year. I would press F4 to lock it, and the lookup array would be this range of cells, which is the years in this horizontal range of cells. I would press F4 to lock it, and I want an exact match. Now when I hit enter, it gives me 2060, which is the number of employees in corporate in 2013. If I go back to the data, this gives me the right data point. Similarly, if I double click on it, it gives me the number for all these business units in this year. If I change this here, so for example if I make it 2 here, you can see that these numbers have updated itself. Now I want the number of employees trained in this year in this business unit. So again I would copy this master formula that I created at the beginning of this dashboard, and I would paste it here, and you can see that there are certain conditions that I would want. So I would want the start year, I would keep it. I want the employee band here, so I would keep the second condition. I would also keep the third condition because I want the countries as well. I do not want professional development, but I do want the business unit, so I would change this value, which is A11. I would drag it down so that it refers to this cell, which is A25, and I don't want the last condition, so I would remove it, close the bracket and press Ctrl Shift Enter, and now it gives me 339, which means that in 2014 in all the employees with all these regions there were 339 employees trained in corporate. To cross-check the data, I can simply select these two because these are the numbers for corporate combined for professional development and skill development, and this number is 339, which means that my data here is right. And now I can double click and I have all the data here. Now to calculate the percentage of department trained, I simply need to divide this number by the total number of employees, and this would give me the percentage of department trained in that year. To get the number of people trained last year, I would simply copy this formula, and the only thing that I need to change here is the year. So what I would do here is when I select 2014, here I want the numbers for 2013, so I would simply subtract 1 from this cell and I would put it in round brackets. And now when I hit Ctrl Shift Enter, it gives me the number of people trained in corporate last year, which is 2013. And now when I double click on it, it gives me all the numbers for last year. Now the difference here is actually the percentage that I want to show. So I would simply say I want this value, and let me put it in bracket already. So I would press C25 minus E25 and I would divide it by E25, and now when I hit enter, it gives me 2.1%, and now when I double click, it gives me the number for all these business units, the change that has happened over the year, which is a trend, which means that in corporate it has trained 2.1% employees more than as compared to last year, as compared to say supply chain where there has been a decline of 12.4%. Now let's put these numbers into the dashboard. So here I need to calculate the number of people trained in corporate in the given year with the given band and regions. I would go back to calculations and I would simply refer to cell B25, and now when I double click, it would give me all these numbers. Similarly, in percentage of department trained, I would put this number D25 and I would double click, and in versus last year I would refer to this cell, which is F25, and now I would double click here. I can change the format. So here I would press Control 1 to give 1,000 separator, and I don't want any decimals. Here in both these cells I would use a percentage format with only one decimal point. And now what I also need here is icon sets. So I want to show a trend with an upward arrow or a downward arrow. So to do that I would go to Home, and within conditional formatting I would go to New Rule, and I would select icon sets here. And when I select icon sets, I have all these icon sets options. I would select a 3-bar icon sets, which is a 3-arrow icon set, and I would change these to number. So I don't want percentage, I want number. And when this cell is less than 0, then I want to show red, and I only want to show red and green. So when these numbers are less than 0, then show me red. But if it is greater than or equal to 0, then show me green. Now when I click OK, you can see that it shows me upward arrow wherever the trend is positive, and a downward arrow wherever the trend is negative. Now all I need to do is format it properly. So I would go to border, give it a good border, change the format a bit. So maybe I would align it to the center, and in this case I can also maybe extend these width a little so that it looks a bit better. And these are things that you can play around with your dashboard, the formatting stuff. But the idea is that these numbers are here and these numbers are correct. So if I change this to 2013, this would instantly update and it would give you the numbers here. And you can see that it is all linked to your format control. Everything, all these charts would update as soon as you make these changes in the interactive control options. Now the last thing here is the training option. So if I go back to calculations, here I need to identify top trainings, but before that I also need to give the user an option to select whether he's looking for professional trainings or skill development trainings or both. So to do that I would have to insert radio buttons. So I would go to insert, and here I would insert a radio button, and I would simply say this is for professional development. Another radio button, so I can simply copy paste this. Another one would be skill development, and the third one would be the option to have both, so get the trainings for both. Now these options are, so these are radio buttons, and the way it works is I would right click and go to format control, and again I would have to specify a cell link. So in this case I would say I want it unchecked, and the cell link here would be, going back to calculations, this cell, or maybe I can simply say this cell. And now when I click OK, you can see that this is unchecked, but if I check this, then this becomes 1. I would again link this to E7 again, but it is already linked, because if you have a group, they're all linked to the same cell. If you want to link it to a different cell, then these would be independent. But in this case the idea is that you can only select one of these, and when you do that, so this is unchecked as well, and this is also there. So let me do one thing, let me make it checked. Now what happens is, if you go back to calculations, you see there is 3 here, but if I select professional development, it becomes 1. If I select skill development, it becomes 2. So what is happening here is you can specify what kind of training type you're looking for by just clicking on these radio buttons, and when you do that, this number would change. Now I would use this number to get a list of trainings, and those would be sorted based on the number of people that have taken that training. Now one thing that I would do here is I would specify these options here, and I would mention the type it refers to. So for example, in this case, number 1 refers to professional development, and make sure that this text is exactly what you have in the data. If you're typing it by yourself, make sure that this is exact, otherwise this would not work, and in this case third would be both. Now these are all the training names that I've got from the data here. Again, you can control paste here and then remove duplicates to get this data. And I have the training type, which is again from the data sheet. So these are professional development training, these are skill development trainings. Now the first thing that I want to check here is what are the number of people that have advanced management skills training in the specified year, in the specified band and region. Now to get this number, I would again go back to the master formula I have created here, come here and paste it. Now I would check the conditions. I need the year, I need the band here, which is junior management, senior management, or the other bands. I need the region, and I don't need these two. So I would delete the last two conditions and instead add another condition in round brackets. I would type HR data and I would say the training name, and if this training name is equal to the name here, and I would close the bracket and press Ctrl Shift Enter, and it gives me the number of people in these specified conditions, which is 2013, in all the bands in all the countries that have taken advanced management skills training. Now let me go back to the data to again triangulate and see if we are right. So I would apply filters by Ctrl Shift L. Here I would select the start date as 2014, and I would change the training, I would select the training name to advanced management skills, and here it gives me 318, and let me also check here, it gives me 242, but this is for 2013. So when I make it 2014, the number is 318, which is the number that we get here, which means that our formula is working just fine. I would drag this down so I have the number of people who have attended this training. Now the second thing that I want to do here is I want to return the name of the training, but only if it is the selected one. So for example, here if you have selected professional development, then I only want to return the name if it is a professional development training. I don't want to return the name if it is a skill development training. So in this case I would use an if condition, and I would use it with an or condition, and I would say the first step here is if this value here F4 is equal to 3, which means that if it says both, then this would anyway be true. Or the other condition is if I look up this value here E7, I would press F4 to lock it in this training type number. So I have 1 2 3 here, and I have the names here, and I would return the value from the second column, which means that based on the number it would give me these names. If it is 1, then it would return professional development. If it is 2, it would return skill development. And if this is equal to this training type here, which is professional development, and this would be my OR condition. If this is true, and this would be true if I have either selected both or I have selected professional development. So this would be true only in these two conditions. If I select skill development, then this would be false. If this is true, then give me the name of this training, else give me blank. And now when I hit enter, it gives me advanced management here, and when I double click, you can see that it gives me all these names, but it does not give me these names because these are skill development. And if I go and check here, I've selected professional development here. If I select both, you can see that all these names come here. If I select skill development only skill development trainings would come here. Now I would check whether there is a value here, and if there is a value, I would return this number. So I would simply check if this cell is not equal to empty, then give me this value, else give me blank. And now I hit enter and I double click, and you can see that I have, let me delete this, you can see that I have these values here for these trainings. If I go back and I select professional development, I would have the numbers for professional development. Now the idea here is that I want to get the name of these trainings based on the numbers here in an ascending order, which means that I would want 318 training, which is advanced management, on the top. Then I would want path to extraordinary success, which has 292 people trained, at the second number. But first, what we need to make sure is that before I give a rank to it, there is no duplication. So to do that, I would do a simple thing. I would add a very small number to it. So I would use the rows formula, and I would lock the first reference so that as it goes down it becomes 2, 3 and so on, and I would divide this by a large number, and this could be any large number. I've randomly taken this, and now when I double click, it gives me these values. Again, I can simply say if there is an error, give me blank. And now when I double click on it, it might just look like this, but see what happens when I change the decimal place numbers here. If I change the decimal place to say 8 decimal places, you would see that these numbers are not exactly the same. These are different. Now I would sort these numbers based on its value. So I would say large, and this is my array F4, and I need the first largest value here. So the rows would become 1 here, and I would lock this so that as I go down it becomes 1, 2, 3 and so on. And when I double click, it gives me these numbers in an ascending order, which means that the largest is at the top, followed by these numbers. And I don't want these errors, so I would wrap this between if error. And now when I double click, it gives me these values. Now what I want to do here is I want to get the name of the training in an ascending order. So to do that, all I need to do is I would use index, and I would use this array. I can use this array as well. I would hit F4, and I would have to match this number, which is 318,00010, which is the number here, and the lookup array would be this one, and I would hit F4, and this would be an exact match. Now when I hit enter, it gives me advanced management skills. The only problem here is that when it goes down, it would give me the remaining trainings here. So to avoid that, I would simply change this to this cell here, because then it would not have business grammar, so it will not show that, and I'm all set here. So if you change this to both here and I come back to calculations, it will show me all the trainings in an ascending order, because here if you check, Microsoft Excel has the maximum number of people trained, which is 321. So it comes here, and then are the remaining numbers. So now I have all these names here in an ascending order. I do not want to use these numbers along with these names, because if I press Ctrl+1, you can see that these are the pseudo numbers that I've created by adding these rows. So all I would do is, in front of these training names, I would simply extract their numbers. So I would use this within a VLOOKUP formula. My lookup value would be this training name. My table array would be this. I would hit F4 to lock it. My column index number would be 3, and I want an exact match. And now when I hit enter, it gives me 321. Let me shift this formula to this cell, because that is the adjacent cell. And now when I double click here, you can see that I have these numbers here. Again, if you go back to the dashboard and I only select skill development, you can see that I only have skill development training and their numbers. I do not want not available error, so I would simply use if error formula, and I would say if there is an error, give me a blank. Now when I double click, I get this, and you can cross check that these are right. Microsoft Excel has 321, which is right. This is also the maximum number of people trained by a training. Microsoft PowerPoint has 309, which is again right, because we are looking at skill development and not professional development. And if I select both, you can see that this has updated itself. So now I have these numbers in place. All I need to do here in this dashboard is, let me go back to the original dashboard and copy these headers, and I would paste it here. And all I need to do is I would link these cells, which is top trainings here, to this cell, and I would hit enter, and I can drag it down to have all these. Now here I have only taken top 8 trainings. If you want more, you can select the entire thing, but the idea is as soon as you change these options, these values would change. Again, a good thing here would be to change these properties to do not move or size with cells, because you can see that when I changed the row width, these have changed. So I would change this value here, and I would simply put them together. These come here. Now we have the number of employees covered. This could easily be linked to this cell here, and I have these numbers. Again, you can cross check as you change this. This would change, and you want to have the trainer name. Now a easier way would be either you can extract the trainer name separately, or what you can do is simply VLOOKUP this value, and the table array would be, say, this entire thing till the end. I want to extract it from the 4th column, and so this would give me trainer name. Now I've taken a bigger route, and you can simply do this by extracting it separately, but just to show it, this is also one way of doing it. Also, this would make your Excel workbook slower, but just to show it, I've done this. And now when I double click here, this is gone. So now you can see as I change these options here. So if I select professional development, I only have trainings for professional development here with the number of employees covered and the trainer name. Let me give a border to it, and let me align this properly. Another thing that I have done here is I have also applied conditional formatting to show data bars, and these are the data bars that I've picked up. You can try some other kind of formatting if you want, but it's a good idea to show these bars because this improves the visual appeal of your dashboard. Again, you can see that these are shifting because of the same problem that I just showed you. I do not have it fixed and do not move or size with cells. Now my dashboard is almost complete. I can resize it here so that I can hide these cells. I would hide these cells here, and I would also hide, say, from row number 29 to the bottom. I would, okay, if not from 29, then not from 30, I would do it, and I would hide these rows as well. So now my dashboard is almost complete. All you need to do is you need to arrange this data and maybe format it a bit, put a border to it, apply headers to these charts and these tables so that it would look good, maybe something like this. So I have these headers here, I have the border to these charts, I have these completely aligned with these charts. So the first part is aligned with this chart here, and the second table at the bottom right is aligned with the picture here, so that you have all these covered. The last thing that you need to calculate is the training man days covered, which is again very easy. Going back to the dashboard we are creating, if you need to calculate the total number of man days covered, you can simply say, maybe use the same formula here which I have used, which is this one, and I would simply calculate it here just to show you how it works. And I don't want this professional development or corporate bit here, so I would delete these two conditions, and instead of this I would add HR data and here I have number of days, and I would simply multiply it with number of days. And now when I hit control enter, it gives me 5240, which is the number of days, number of man days trained by this company in 2014. If you change this to 2013, this would change to 5250. And again, as I showed you earlier, you can simply create a box. So let me show you how to do it. I've simply done this and link it to this cell here. Again, it comes here. Now again, you can have a separate text box, maybe something like this, and say number of full number of man days covered, and give it a bit of fancy formatting so that it would fit perfectly as you see in my regular dashboard. So if I give, say, maybe the color is fine, just a bit of formatting here would do the trick, and maybe make it bold and a bit bigger. So again, this is simple formatting that you can do and highlight it here. The idea is that this is again linked to the data that we have, and if I change these, so for example, if I uncheck US, you would see that these numbers would update. So this would give you the total number of man days covered by this company with all these training. So this is a draft of the dashboard. When you completely format it, this is what you would look at when your dashboard is finalized. So that is it in this video. I hope you found this useful. Thank you and have a nice day.